Hello and welcome to the 70th episode of Another Fans. Hi Abhishek.
Hi Dev, how are you doing?
All well.
Very well. 70th you said?
70th, yeah, 70. One of...
Nearing 75. 75 is what? What is it called?
Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav.
This is not Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav. Blasphemy.
I mean...
No, but what Jubilee is it? Platinum?
Platinum, I think, yeah. I don't know. No, Jubilee to nahi hoga na. Jubilee is...
75 is not. 50 is golden.
Right.
75 is platinum. 100 is, of course, a century. Yeah. It's platinum, I think.
Yeah.
Are we right?
I don't know.
Anna?
So
we're nearing
75th Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav came to my mind because we're also going to be celebrating the 75th Independence Day
of course.
next week. Aaj kya hai? It's second, so 10 days from now. But one of our listeners viewers came up to me in office. He is in our company and said that he enjoys our podcast, but he said that he doesn't know where to get the rest of the episodes on. So I just thought, for our listeners and viewers, we'll just let them know that, we are there on Apple Podcasts, we're there on Google Podcasts, we're there on Spotify, and all our videos, at least since we began doing videos, which has been I think around
20
10,
maybe?
12, more than that, 15 episodes. Around, I think, approximately 15 episodes.
Maybe.
Yeah. So all our videos, 26 of them are available on our YouTube channel. The handle is India Today. You can go there and there's a tab called Podcast where you can find In Our Defense ka playlist, which has all the episodes that we've done on video. We'd also love some feedback from you. You can drop a comment to us on the YouTube channel if you want, or, a text to us at 8588966996. You can also email us at pods@indiatoday.com. That's pods@indiatoday.com. So let's talk about some of the most headline-grabbing happenings that have happened this week.
There's been a big series of some really big headlines.
Really big headlines, yeah. I was actually a bit conflicted whether I wanted to discuss this with you this week, especially on this on our podcast. I mean, I'd like to talk about it in general with you separately, but. And the reason for that is, first, our podcast is called In Our Defense. So the immediate image that comes to mind is, war, military, big guns, tanks, missiles, etc., etc. What's happened in the last couple of days that we are going to discuss, and this will tell our listeners and viewers before we go into it, is one, the violence in Haryana that began in Nu when clashes broke out during a religious procession that was being taken out. That spread to several districts, reached Gurugram, one of the cities of NCR, high alert in Delhi, Faridabad, Noida, regions bordering or nearby Gurugram. And while this was happening, a railway constable, railway protection force constable murdered 4 people in cold blood, including one of his seniors, on a running train and 3 passengers. The reason I was a bit conflicted, because the thing is, ye topics ko na, there is no way you can avoid the politics around it, because both of them, whether it's the firing that took place near Mumbai, not near Mumbai actually, just on the outskirts of Mumbai, when the train was just about to enter Mumbai basically, and the violence that happened in Haryana. There is already politics happening over it. You have everyone on all spectrums reacting to it. You cannot avoid that. Which then made me think कि अगर हम इस चीज़ को इस एपिसोड में बात करेंगे, then we'll end up ना हो जाए. But then I also thought कि there's also a big security angle to it, because this again goes back to the days when you were covering the local polices of Bombay and Delhi. First, let's just...
No, just sorry to cut you short here. The politics bit that you mentioned, there is no subject in the world from which you can completely isolate politics. Isn't it? Yeah. So even when we discuss defense, heavy defense stuff, there are political linkages to so many things. When we discuss a war, war is a political instrument, isn't it?
Of course. In India especially because it's only the civilian government that can go to war.
No, even Russia, Ukraine. After all, it's politics. It's geopolitics. So you can't leave politics out of anything. So if we have to touch upon politics, so be it. I mean,
So be it. Exactly.
No
I mean,
problem.
that's why, yeah. So I just wanted to start off with that. I was in two minds.
Giving a sort of a rejoinder.
Yeah, I was in two minds about that.
Clarity.
So I wanted you to just know before we start discussing this. First things first, how is it like? What is a riot like? I mean, and I want you to describe this for us, because actually you have described something like this to us off camera, off the mics. Not that you were hiding something. It was just कि वो हम naturally कभी इस पता आ नहीं पाए. But you've mentioned a couple of incidents where you've seen it up close, not being at the receiving end, but you've seen stuff like, for example, stone pelting. Just take us through what is it like to be in a situation where there is just sheer violence happening. Let's forget,
So see, there are different categories, if I can say so, of unrest. One, of course, we've discussed Manipur, which I feel is a civil war.
Yes.
This is a classic example of a riot.
Haryana.
Yeah, what's happened in Mumbai-bound, Haryana. The two communities clash. And the genesis of the clash is religion. It's a classic example of a riot. We often talk about 1984, and there's this big debate whether it was a riot or just one-sided bloodshed against a community, because there were no clashes. A
Per
community
se,
was sort of targeted. Yeah, so that's another category. Another is where there's unrest, but it's certainly nowhere close to a riot. It might turn violent. Say Nirbhaya protests.
Yes.
So you have to understand the intent of the people who are indulging in that unrest and violence. So those guys were not rioters. Those were common citizens. And that's the reason why somewhere the state, the police allowed them to do it also.
Right.
Because they could understand the sentiments of what's happening. Here what has happened is, I think both sides were completely ready to take each other on.
Yeah,
that's
good you mentioned that, because I want to come to that. But
to take each other on. They were so. It begs the question that what did the local administration do prior to this event, to this march, religious march that was planned? And in fact, one of our young reporters who did a fabulous job that day, Anmol Bali, I think he was the only reporter to be present in the middle of that stone pelting at that point of time. And in his ground report, he kept his calm and he just showed what's happening. The camera was showing everything and he was just speaking. And you know what struck me was when he said, "Kahin pe police nahi nazar aa rahi hai." So you have been saying, the organizers was saying that this is an annual event taking place for the last 3 years.
3 years.
If it's an annual event taking place for the last 3 years in an extremely volatile, charged up environment, and you also have to understand the demography.
Demography of Mewat, the region.
See, again, to say that it's one community, a lot of gangs actually function out of that place.
Yes.
There's no hiding. It's something on record. And perhaps that's the reason why one of the police stations, a cyber police station,
was also
completely
targeted.
burned down or was targeted.
We've all seen the visuals, yeah.
So somewhere somebody took advantage. Probably those gangsters who run those Jamtara.
Yeah, because actually Mewat, we were discussing this in the newsroom, that Mewat actually is emerging as the new Jamtara of India.
A cyber police station was targeted. Somebody must have thought that, in the middle of all this, it's the right time to sort of target the infrastructure that's targeting
Hindi
us.
में कहावत है ना, बहती अंधा में हाथ धो लिया.
Something of that sort. But to just simply explain to our viewers, listeners, why we are discussing, this is very much an internal security problem.
Definitely.
There's absolutely no shying away from it. And if it's an internal security problem, in our defense, we'll talk about it.
Definitely. Yeah. And you mentioned the cybersecurity police station, cyber police station, and just ironically, just a thought struck me that they were probably the ones who should have been monitoring for intelligence before the patch
so
happened.
Ironic, isn't it?
Because in this day and age, all this planning happens online, does not happen.
And there are telltale signs on social media.
Yes.
And again, we've done a report today on this. Ankit Kumar, our OSINT, journalist who heads our Austin team, has again done this report. His team has done this report saying that there were telltale signs on social media of how this was, waiting to happen. It was brewing from both the sides. So, very simple. Nobody's watching them. What was happening? That person, I'm forgetting his name, Monu Manesar.
That was his rumored presence was the one that
also triggered it. And Monu Manesar is available on phone to us.
Imagine.
He's available on phone to us, but he's not available to the police.
They're wanted in I think Rajasthan, but the Rajasthan police murder case.
So again, we're not saying whether it's the Rajasthan police or the Haryana police. There's no blame game here. I'm just talking about the way police has dealt with Monu Manesar. Even if Haryana is saying वो देखे Rajasthan देखे उनकी problem है. So yes, I mean I'm sure Rajasthan police should do some answering, but at the same time, when Haryana police knew that his name is being used to trigger all this, they are within their rights to go and pick him up or do whatever with him.
Of course, yeah. And I'll come back to that because just like what you said right now, just a tangential thought struck me, and you, I think, are the perfect person to answer this. Journalists have a history of talking to criminals, people who, and especially criminals who are running away from the cops, whether it's Dawood Ibrahim or, like you said, Monu Manesar, who's been wanted in Rajasthan but is available to us on phone. How does it work? I mean, you've been a crime reporter, so how is it? Have you in your career ever had to speak to cops about it, for example? Cops who are on the hunt, they call you up like, "Bhai, tumne kahan se baat kar liya?"
No, see, in this day and age, it's really easy. I mean, phone numbers are available. Social media handles are there and you can get in touch with somebody and they respond. Earlier, of course, it wasn't so easy. But for the last 20 years, I guess, since mobile phones have come, tracking a person is not that big a deal. So if any cop says that we are unable to track the gentleman, it's you don't sort of digest nahi hota, isn't it? That how can you give that excuse? Numbers are available, WhatsApp is there. These guys are running websites in the name of being Gau Rakshaks, cow vigilantism and things like that. So I don't know. It sounds odd.
No,
See, back in the day when mobile phones came, I remember cops saying that you should not write how we track them down because it was the mobile phone that it was the mobile phone dump that was used to track down criminals. So don't write that. They'll know this. They already knew it. Maybe at the early stages they did not know, and then later they got to know. And then this wasn't a story that how criminals were picked up and they were traced, tracking their mobile phone locations. Now it's a given. And gangsters, criminals, terrorists, they use different means and to hoodwink the authorities, but they still use phones. Its phone has become such an integral part. I don't think somebody can really give up his or her phone. And if you are, and I remember in those days, cops also telling me that if somebody has a phone, this was the context was also privacy. Then just forget about your privacy. It's compromised. And you can be tracked. So be it your privacy or being a criminal, if you have a phone, you can easily be tracked by us. So it's difficult to understand how some of these guys who are wanted and are planning and are making provocative videos.
Oh yes,
videos are being made and flashed all over social media, and really hideous videos, which were meant to provoke. And that's what happened. And again, that's what I'm saying. I don't mean to sort of demean any community, but Mewat is known for criminals.
Yes. Yeah.
This is what you expected from them.
I get your point about police, what you said about being able to track anyone not very easily, and from personal experience, completely nothing to do with my profession, but just a random chat with a I think senior inspector at a police station. I had gone for some personal matter. Masi mazak mein, he basically is the same what you said. In this day and age, if we really want to find somebody, it's like child's play for us. We just need the resources in terms of manpower and the will.
Yeah.
So comes the question that we...
since you mentioned this, early days of my reporting, I remember asking some cop, a senior cop, for something where I wanted some information or, and I was giving some clue or some information to the person that this is related to this. He said, okay, I'll speak to the SHO, you speak to him. And he'll let you know. So in my innocence, I asked, that should I speak to the NS? Should I give these details to him? So he said, no, he'll know. So I said, how will he know? I said, SHO hai yaar.
Yeah.
How can he not know?
Not know. Exactly.
So that's how it is. That how can you not know that this was going to happen is my question. When you know very small little details of what happens in your jurisdiction.
Yeah. So that was going to lead up to the next thing I want to discuss with you. We briefly discussed that during the last week's episode, Manipur violence, where I began by talking about the police can bring any riot under control if it has the full freedom to and if it really wants to. But obviously, because of Manipur, we then discussed more about the situation there and how it's, like you said, a civil war and not just a riot anymore. On this podcast, we've discussed the military, and we have that safe space in military matters where it's taken for granted. Ki first of all, they are professionals altogether, like complete come through and through. And when it comes to situations like a riot, when sometimes army is called in for control, you don't expect them to be politically biased or have any political leanings. That's not so much the case with the police, at least in perception. Yeah. And honestly, we can be honest. Police is
there
biased.
Isn't. Perception is that the political masters get their way.
Yeah. So मुझे ये समझना है, in your career, you've seen both these forces and you've seen them right now we're talking about internal violence. We're not talking about external conflicts. You've seen them in situations where they've had to control violence. Just like as a observer, how would you describe the approaches the two forces take and the differences?
This is a topic where I can talk for hours, and I'm extremely passionate about it.
I had a feeling.
Extremely passionate about it. And unlike a lot of people, I sometimes empathize with the police. For the individual more than the institution. They don't work because of the system, certainly. They work despite the system.
Okay.
I'm very certain about that. The army or the armed forces are extremely efficient. The police might not seem to be efficient. But as I said, despite the system, against all odds, there's a different kind of a respect that I have for our cops, actually. Okay. Not that I condone the wrongdoings that happen in the police, and I've always I've told this to cops on their faces, speaking to them, being very candid, that just go to a thana in civil clothes, looking a little vulnerable, and try and explain to the person in the thana that you are a victim of some crime. You will feel like the accused. तो ये problem है mindset का. The cop sitting there will start questioning you.
Yeah.
Just go there and say, I've lost my wallet.
कहाँ क्या कर रहे थे? वहाँ पे क्यों थे?
कैसे गिरा दिया? मैंने कहा गिराया नहीं. पिक पॉकेट ले गया. Let's assume. ऐसे कैसे ले गया? पकड़ा नहीं. This is the mindset of the police. The other side is why this mindset is there. And none of us are experts at psychology, just out of experience, they get so used to lies around themselves. Every time somebody or the else who they are dealing with is blatantly lying to them. So they just don't know what the truth is and what's a lie. So by nature, they become probing without realizing that this guy could actually be a victim. He's come here for a complaint. So that problem is there. But then there are so many examples of the police doing a great job. Some blind cases have been solved. I mean, the list is long. We can have a series of great cases cracked. The armed forces, on the other hand, is extremely efficient because they get the platform to be efficient. They're given everything.
Yes. That's very much true, yes. All the resources, everything.
All the resources are there.
And the training, by the way, I think plays a big role. No?
Big role. So, yeah, I mean, there is a huge scope of police reforms, and it sounds like a cliche now. I don't like using that term anymore. It's not police reform. You need a modern day police.
Yeah.
Our police system is what the colonial rule gave us. And that's why it's always suspecting of the guy who's coming to complain.
Because that is, exactly, I get
That's
you.
a colonial legacy
Very
that
good
needs
point.
to be shed as well.
Yeah.
That's why it's always suspecting of a complainant. That's, on the other hand, there is obviously a huge colonial legacy in the armed forces. We've done our episodes on that. But again, it's cocooned. They have their own life. That's why they are more efficient. That's why the world doesn't get to know about the
Much
problems.
about them, exactly, yeah.
But here, a cop is under scrutiny every day, and rightly so. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. So in gist, this is the basic difference. And again, coming to police reforms, it's hugely discussed. Prakash Singh versus Union of India case in the Supreme Court, where the court has actually laid down how police should be divided, law and order duty should be different, riot duty should be different. Cyber investigations now, of course, is another aspect. Several other investigations, you need to have specialists. But today you are in the traffic police, suddenly you are in the thana, then you are in the cyber thana.
And of course, the favorite word of police, bandobast at times.
Bandobast at times. So you are an all-rounder.
Yeah.
So how do you expect them to be specialists and professionals? Yes, I still feel they are professionals. Professionals in the sense that whatever is expected out of them, they are doing. They're trying to do.
The best of their abilities, yeah.
But they're not specialists. Fauj mein specialists hain. There's an infantry. There's an armored corps. There's an artillery. You're not expected to do everything. There are fighter pilots. There are guys on the ground. There are submariners. So why is it efficient? Because it has specialists. The training is specialized. Here, jo aa gaya, khaki pehni, chalo. You're expected to do everything.
Everything, yeah.
So I don't know when this policing system will change in our setup. And until it's changed, we'll keep on seeing these kind of things. And actually, there are 3 incidents that have caught my eye.
Of course, this week?
Yeah. Related to policing, internal strife, internal security. And all are linked. Somewhere there's a hate, crime, religion angle to it. One is, of course, what's happened in Haryana. The other, you mentioned, the RPF constable. He was looking for Muslim passengers after killing his senior. And then another one I think you've missed out is in Bareilly, where the Kawadiyas happened to change their route.
Yes.
And come in front of a mosque, in front of a mosque and do some hangama there. And when the police tried to disperse them and all attempts failed, the SSP had to use force and there was a lathi charge.
Yeah.
Now, the SSP has been transferred.
Yes. Sent to Lucknow for some...
PSC.
Yeah. punishment posting. Basically.
sort of. So,
Yeah.
how do you look at it? I mean, the
Yeah.
SSP, to me, there's absolutely no way of calling what I'm going to say now is political or anything. Here was a guy who was ensuring that a communal riot doesn't
Did not happen. Exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
His objective was this. Simple.
Yeah. That's a very good contrast. I mean, here was a guy, like you said, trying to ensure communal riot did not take place. And yahan pe, I'm not sure who the top cop in Mewat was, but a riot did take place. 6 people
When
died,
there was
including 2 home
prior
guards.
information, so much of prior
including
information.
2 home guards. Yeah.
So the thing is that if you want to, that's why I said that police functions despite the system, not
Despite
because
the
of
system, yeah.
So the SSP in Bareilly
Hmm.
worked despite the system, knowing fully well that no matter what the political ideology is, the rule of law gives him the authority to take action on the ground. He cannot be suspended. He cannot be dismissed from service. He can only be
Transferred,
shunted.
yeah.
He probably knew that.
Yeah. And he has a history of
Yeah, he has a history,
of 16, I think 16 or
Yeah,
18 times he's been transferred. And but jitna maine padha hai, he also has a history, like you said, of being quite uptight and not law abiding. That would be the wrong word to use for him, but
trying to ensure that the
is
law
in
of the
place.
land is followed.
Is followed, yeah. And
At least in this case.
in this case, yeah.
See, lathi charge, of course, doesn't sound like a very good, there would be elements which one can say is against human rights and things, which it is when you debate it. But whether we like it or not, it's not an illegal act.
Of course, yeah.
It's not an illegal
Perfectly
act.
within his rights,
Now it becomes illegal or it gets under scrutiny when the power is misused.
Misused, yeah.
If you think that the power is misused, hold him accountable. Why transfer him?
I know in this case, I mean, we've seen the
Why
videos.
the transfer,
I
isn't
don't
it?
think that
Take action. Take action
yeah.
against him. Suspend him. There should be an
Hold an
inquiry.
inquiry, yeah.
Whatever. Why transfer?
There's nothing basically. You're not even saying that what he did was wrong, but you still, punishment posting. So.
And legally, technically, a transfer of an officer is not considered punitive action.
Legally
and technically.
Yeah, true. Which is why, this actually is a question that keeps coming to me by a lot of friends who are not in the media. This guy has such a controversial career, so many transfers. So how did he end up becoming a because there are several top cops of states or there are commissioners of cities who've had such a career, many transfers in their lives, and then suddenly one day they become at a very good come at a very good post. The answer is what Abhishek said right now, that because legally whatever's happened in the career has not considered as punitive action.
It's also the political leadership of the day.
Of course. That's
complete
definitely
discretion.
That definitely plays a
Complete discretion. We want this guy.
Yeah, a big part of the police reforms debate.
So there are beneficiaries of the political discretion, and there will be guys who are on the other side of this.
Yeah.
So there could be a strong political leader, fair political leader who appoints somebody thinking that this person is the right person for the job. And despite what has happened in the past, I overlook all of this and I still appoint.
Yeah.
So there could be a case where you will say, this is a good decision. Yeah, see the person as... But there could be a political, ideological view as well. And in UP, I'm not talking about the current dispensation. This has been the norm in UP for decades. Yeah. Decades. I don't know other states what the situation is, but because I come from UP, I followed UP a little more than the other states. UP has always been like that. And you will find officers who have become DGPs in one regime and in the other regime they were shunted.
Yeah.
So those contradictions are there.
Yeah. One more point on the Haryana thing, and I think the politics that has happened in the last last one day since the clash broke out has kind of taken the spotlight away from what I personally think is, in this case, is just pure police ineffectiveness. Because for a change, here the police is not being accused of being biased towards one community or the other. We have to also keep in mind two, of not police per se, but two home guards also lost their lives in the clashes. They were one of the first ones to be killed, if I'm not wrong. On the first day of the clash itself, they were shot dead. In this case, the police is not being accused of siding for somebody or letting riots happen. It's just like you said, there was social media chatter. There was definite, there were strong signs कि कुछ होने वाला है. And they were apparently caught off guard. Yeah. So do you think it was just pure ineffectiveness, or do you also see sort of a political, like you said, the Bareilly contrast? Yeah. Just like, for example, वहाँ का जो top cop होगा सोच रहा होगा, if I take action, what if I get transferred?
That's why
should I not?
That's why I gave.
He was waiting for his higher ups to like come down.
That's why I gave that example.
Yeah.
See, all said and done, no matter what the political leadership feels, the SP, the collector have enough power to handle these things and take action. Enough power.
Yeah. Right.
Police क्यों नहीं थी? I mean, that's a simple thing. Why wasn't the police there in full strength in such a volatile environment, where an area which is known for crime and criminals?
It's a question everyone's asking, and we'll talk more about this, but after a quick break.
Hi guys. I was hoping you'd play a quick game for me before you hear the rest of this episode. Now I know what you're thinking. It's the first episode and she's already giving us homework. But I promise this is really quick and it'll help put everything in perspective. All you need to do is ask someone to place something in your hand. Now here's the small catch. Your eyes need to be shut. You don't need to blindfold them. Just keep them closed. And you can't know what the object is beforehand. When you're done with this, do join me again for the rest of this episode. This is Sonali Acharji, and you're listening to Health Wealth, the podcast which promises to help you understand health, but also feel really, really motivated to look after it. Can you recall how your body felt between closing your eyes and discovering what the object really was? Was there a slight pressure in your chest area? Was there a change in your breathing? Perhaps an emptiness in your stomach? Or even for a tiny second, did you feel, oh, let me take a look at what's in my hand. What if it's something I'm afraid of? Or what if it's something that can harm me? Because that's anxiety right there. It's that feeling of not knowing what's there and your brain fearing that unknown. And then your body responds to that fear. Because all fear is ultimately associated with danger. We're all born with this ability to get anxious. In fact, it was anxiety that brought you and me here. You know, when our prehistoric ancestors decided, oh, you know what, we're tired of living in these caves and we want to get out into the unknown world out there. Over years, our body evolved to create a flight or fight response to keep us safe. So that whenever we came across anything that we thought could threaten us, it could be an unknown or a known thing. It could be a thunderstorm. It could be a tiger. It could be a woolly mammoth. You know, I have it on record that prehistoric mammoths were nothing like what you see on Ice Age. But whenever we saw anything that we were worried or scared of, this biological mechanism kicked right in.
Welcome back. Abhishek and I are discussing a force in the Indian defense, internal defense setup that we don't really talk about often, the police. We spoke about the clashes in Haryana. We spoke about what happens when there is belief of political pressure, etc. Let's move for a bit towards Bombay. I think if Haryana clashes had not happened, this would be the top story. Not that it wasn't. It was
the RPF.
The RPF guy, yeah. Of course. Because this is a story that is shocking and scary on every level. From the get-go.
It was a hate crime.
Yeah. But I'm saying from every level, as in this, that was the development that happened a few hours after we found out. Yes. I'm saying even at the first level, you are in a train.
Scary.
The group of 5-6 people who supposed to patrol every night.
And supposed to defend you. In case there is a terror attack.
Yeah. And legally are allowed to carry weapons. Yeah. Just one of them picks up that very weapon, chooses 3 passengers, shoots them dead. Alongside his senior. Yes, what you said. 4-5 hours later, it turned out this was a hate crime because he chose 3 Muslim men after shooting his senior.
No, and also that
male.
video.
The video
where
clip
he's
that was
with
tweeted out by
one of the dead people.
he was standing over the
and
body
making
and
some kind of
a sermon.
Yeah.
वो मतलब video में the text wasn't very garbled.
Pakistan चले जाओ,
some
अगर यहाँ
stuff like
रहना
that.
है,
Yeah,
तो ऐसे रहना
yeah.
है,
So
something
there was
to that
some definite hate speech and hate crime. First things first, and this is a thought that मेरे को 2-3 बार चमका है, and I forgot when was it last because there was when I think if you remember, an Odisha minister was killed by his personal security officer a few months back. Minister, or if I'm not wrong, minister, yes. Health minister, yes. Odisha health minister was assassinated by his personal security officer, not because of any animosity, apparently because he was mentally unwell. We on the newsroom had discussed this back then, didn't really get answers. When this happened, the first immediate reaction was, he was suffering from depression, wanted leave, or jo bhi hai. His family has also said he's been a long-time patient of mental issues, etc. Tell me something. In India's policing setup, if you have men who are legally allowed to carry guns, you'd have some sort of protection against mental or not. I mean,
this is a subject which is never talked about, and
that's why I want to talk about it.
This is somewhere that
scary.
That even the armed forces are extremely cagey about. I've many years back as a younger reporter, I've tried to pursue people that give me data of how many cases are there, how have you dealt with them. It will be a positive story. They bite the bullet, they realize that it will not be a positive story. How the army, how the armed forces are dealing with such cases. Nobody actually talks about it. And that's very scary. It's something that, and isn't it normal for people in these kind of jobs to be mentally stressed?
Yeah.
I would think that it's extremely common.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But
if there is a problem, you deal
support
with
system,
it.
exactly.
Deal with it. Maybe they're dealing with it. They don't want to tell us. But the silence actually gives you another picture that we don't
see
know
with the
how to
army.
deal
I
with
still
these things. And also the fact that if somebody is a patient and there is a prescription, what was he doing on duty then?
Exactly. That's my point. So you said
It's one thing hiding it. But if it's known, then what is the person doing?
But you said the army. So army is still kind of not. I wouldn't say
Fratricide
understand.
happens.
It happens. But because the army is so far away from civilian life, there's no. I personally don't feel a danger because of it. Yeah, like you said, fratricide happens. That's also an issue that army should.
Yeah, but with police,
it seems like army ka
that.
khud ka मामला है. Police, it's like this is a guy in front of me. He's allowed to carry a weapon. What if the next cop who I see on the street has an issue and then he just aims a gun at me and shoots me dead? I mean, that's scary.
Precisely.
So, do you know anything about, is there not a support system? Is there not a way to tackle this? Like you said,
that's what I'm saying. Unfortunately not.
It's dangerous.
And coming back to the hate crime and why it's an internal security problem. If the guy was a patient, he shouldn't have been there, as we say. If he's there, I'm assuming, okay, fine, the problem was there, but somebody thought he's fit enough to
carry
job.
out. Yeah.
And even if he was a patient, the inherent problem is the venom that he has for a particular community. Whether or not he is
even if
mentally unstable.
That was going to be my second point. Even if he's not a mentally unstable or a mental patient, the hate a particular person has for a particular section of the population, that itself should disqualify you from that job.
Especially a person who's in public life.
That's what I'm saying. Should disqualify you from that job of walking down a train every night with a gun in your hand.
Yeah, I mean these are questions that need an answer and nobody has. I mean it's really unfortunate.
What was your first thought when this news flashed? Because
first thought was we didn't know that hate angle, isn't it?
I'm saying first thought when the news flashed.
First thought was that he's killed his colleague. So it looked like a classic case of fratricide.
Yeah.
Then you got to know that he's killed 3 other people, passengers, and then you got to know that it was the trigger was religion. there's been a big debate. Owaisi said that this is a terror attack. His mindset is that of a terrorist. The counter argument is that no. Why is he a terrorist? He was a patient, and you can't call him a terrorist.
Mentally disturbed.
Did we carry out a mental assessment of any of the terrorists who've gone on shooting sprees anywhere in the world?
Ajmal Kasab, for example.
We haven't, isn't it? We should have done that. See, I remember cops always stressing on one thing. If some killer, these kind of killings happened, and if somebody said that they are psychos and that narrative, they said, no. Why call them psychos? Is that if you do this, they'll use it as a defense, and no killer will be guilty if they start taking this defense that they're mentally disturbed and psychos. In this case, giving benefit of doubt that he was mentally disturbed or undergoing treatment as prescriptions have shown, as the family is saying, he shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
So, to me, it looks like a lone wolf, which is a term used in terrorism unfortunately. For people who are self-radicalized, as so many times we hear these terms. And that's what I was saying is an internal security problem.
Yes. We've discussed this on a couple of episodes, but
this is the internal security problem. That if there are people like this who are lone wolf, wearing a uniform or not, what strategy do we have? It cannot be a foolproof strategy, of course. It cannot be, because you can't track each and every individual doing something like this. But there has to be some way out.
And do you think this is being discussed inside as in the central level security establishment?
It will never be discussed at the highest level till the time you actually admit that this is an internal security problem. If you say there's a law and order problem, this was a case of somebody who was mentally unstable. So you are not addressing, you're not admitting that there is a problem.
But I really think not to say that the other incidents that have happened, or any other communal incident that has happened, whether or not involving the police, is of lesser importance. But don't you think the Mumbai train firing one should be a wake up call? I mean, this is
definitely.
It's a blot essentially on this time the Railway Protection Force, which falls under the Indian Railways, if I'm not wrong. I'm not very sure.
Yeah.
No, I think GRP falls under.
RPF
as well. Yeah, just a blot.
Yeah, I mean, definitely is, and it's.
I don't know what to say.
It's more scary than just being a blot.
Exactly.
And as to your question again, is it being discussed? It's not being discussed because there's no admission of. Until you diagnose a problem, you will not find.
Yeah, that's what I'm
treatment.
saying. I think.
So the problem is not being diagnosed. It's being ignored.
This is high time it is identified as a problem.
And a problem, an ailment that is going to have big implications on internal security of this country. The more lone wolves you allow to come up, the bigger the threat. So how do you, my humble 2 cents on how to deal with the idea of controlling lone wolves. You cannot control a lone wolf.
Of course.
You can create an environment that lone wolves do not exist.
Exist in the first place, yeah. I think ultimately they'll end up being Frankensteins one day.
So you allow them to exist because you let a narrative spread around the country that this is okay. You legitimize it. Yeah. So that's why one fine day somebody gets up and says, it's okay. And this is what radicalization, indoctrination is. Not getting into which religion does it best.
It's a nice way to put it.
This is what indoctrination is, when you spread a narrative through whatever means. Religious sermon, political sermon, messaging, that this is legitimized and this is sort of justified. That's when you have lone wolves. This is what ISIS has done, I think. Isn't it?
Yes, exactly that strategy. I think. Not strategy, that's the wrong word, but exactly that.
Plot.
Yeah.
This is what they've done. I have met ISIS aspirants in India.
We've spoken about this.
them.
Yeah. This is
They
exactly
shared their
what has happened with them.
experiences with me, and they said that this is exactly what it was. We were told that doing all this is correct because there has been an injustice. So you make sure that you spread the narrative that you are a victim. When you convince somebody that you are a victim, that's when the second step comes in. Because you are a victim, you have to fight for your rights. Because you've been victimized for so many years. The third step is, who has victimized you? When you paint pictures, these are the kind of people who victimized me. You're told that. Again, through various narratives. And these days, unfortunately, those narratives are in the public space, which are not being dealt with.
No, just to end with that thought, they're not being dealt with. But even if we were to deal with them, just reminded me of what you said earlier, that what you described just in the last few moments, this would require like a specialist police force, because dealing with this, you'd need somebody.
No. This doesn't require a specialist police force. Yeah? Why does it? Don't we, as journalists in our newsrooms, follow social media handles? A constable is, in today's date, even if he's just class 12 pass, which is the basic eligibility, understands a smartphone. Young boys and girls are on social media who join the police. This is the lowest hanging fruit. Just identify people who are doing all this on social media and sort them out. It's the lowest hanging fruit.
Good point.
The specialization of dealing with cyber and all this comes much later. This is why is it so difficult?
Well, why is it so difficult? And
The intent.
Yeah, the intent.
And the narrative that is being spread.
I think we'll end it at that. Thanks once again. Good chat. And I hope our listeners and viewers also enjoyed it. Once again, do let us know what you thought, what you think of our discussions, and if there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, whatever topic that you think we haven't discussed, or you would want to hear from us on.
And this time we'll leave a question: are hate crimes terror attacks?
Yeah,
We'd
love to hear from you on that. Yeah.
Do you think hate crimes should qualify as terror attacks?
Yeah. So let us know. Let us know in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube, in the comments below.
And that's why it's an internal security problem.
Yeah, it is. And if you would like to text us a response, you can do that. Text us at 8588966996. That's it for this week's Defense Dose. For more, tune in next week. Till then, stay safe and do not cross any boundaries without a passport. Bye-bye.